What's up, Hoops Tribe? On my last podcast, Hoops Before Coffee, I told y'all I wouldn't leave you hanging, but that's exactly what happened. Those of you who subscribe to my newsletter at womensbasketball365.com probably already know the details of what happened on my Kentucky trip. It's still up if you want to read it. I won't speak much on it on this episode, but just know that it was a heavy trip. One of those situations that just changes your perspective on life. I'm just happy to be here talking hoops with you all today. So welcome back for episode 12. My intentions were to take y'all inside of the Run for Roses tournament. For anyone who doesn't know, Run for the Roses is the largest girls basketball tournament in the world. A lot of the top recruits go there to be seen. Don Staley, Kim Mulkey, and other top head coaches were in the building. In light of high school hoops, I do want to talk about the new GHSA rule that could change the landscape of transfer athletes across the state of Georgia. For those outside of Georgia, the GHSA is the Georgia High School Sports Authority, and they're cracking down on transfer rules. The GHSA has voted to make student athletes who attend 3 or more schools after 9th grade ineligible for 1 year. The goal is to prevent transfers made purely for athletic reasons and protect the integrity of competition. Under the new rules, any student who transfers must show proof of a bona fide move. That means the entire family must change residence, provide documentation like leases or utility bills, and stay in the new home for at least a year. If they move back within that time, the athlete could be ruled ineligible unless granted an appeal. The bylaw changes also clarify what it means to be a migrant student and will be officially finalized next month. These stricter policies signal a shift towards more accountability and less flexibility for athletes seeking to switch schools for competitive advantage. And it feels like a response to not only high school level athletes, but college level with the transfer portal and NIL. Georgia is a state that allows high schools to monetize, so NIL is available in high school. This conversation opens up a space for Americans to start reevaluating top sports as a whole. I won't pretend like I understand the international landscape of basketball, but I do know Luka Doncic and Ricky Rubio signed with professional teams in Europe at around 13 and 14, while the U.S. restricts players from playing professional ball until they're over 18, unless they're playing for the G League or Overtime Elite. This is why I'm such a fan of Overtime Elite. From the outside, we look at OTE like it's just a high school basketball league, but it's really a prep school on steroids. Players live, learn, and earn in an environment designed to fast track their basketball and personal development. They get media training and exposure. They work with the best of the best. It's a business model that is revolutionizing what youth sports can be in the States. I really like to have a more in-depth conversation on this subject, but for now, I'll put a pin in it and transition into All-Star because it was such a good time and the girls were serving looks. It's time for one of my favorite segments, Who's Feeding the Girls? But before we get into the looks, I want to shout out the All-Star Edition shoes. The A1s are my favorite. The colorway is just so smooth and the black makes everything pop. The book ones are a close second for me. The books in general are a classic silhouette, so damn near every colorway will look dope in them. It literally looks like you're hooping in a comfortable Air Force One and it's built for performance. Also, the Anti-Kai 2s worn exclusively by Brittany Sykes are low-key a top shoe of the weekend. I think Slim, just being an Anti-Kai athlete, is special. Her style goes so well with what they're doing and it's still one of those growing brands, and it's great that she has a part of being the foundation. She might be the only W player with a brand deal from them. Moving into the fits, the stud buds really were feeding the girls all weekend. They're my highlight. We talk about their vibes often. They're a good time, but the looks also serve. And for everyone else, I'm gonna just play this video from Josh Smith that really captured the weekend so well.
Here we go.
I'll let fashion be the segue into WNBA headlines because the WNBPA found a way to make a very loud statement through fashion. The WNBPA is the Players Association, which is essentially the WNBA's union. They branded shirts reading "Pay us what you owe us," and they wore it during the All-Star Game warm-ups. And it's in light of the collective bargaining agreement negotiations. There was an emergency CBA meeting held ahead of the All-Star Game where there was a record turnout of over 40 WNBA players. Players have called the meeting a disappointment and a waste of time, and Angel Reese went as far as to say responses to their proposals were disrespectful. Players submitted proposals back in February, and they say the league didn't respond until mid-June, and even then, there hasn't been any meaningful dialogue. The current CBA is set to expire this fall, and players are pressing for real progress, or there might be game stoppage in 2026. The good news is that there is alignment on things like family planning and retirement, but other major points like salary structure, revenue sharing, and prioritization rules that limit overseas play are still up in the air. The message from the players is simple. If the league wants exclusivity, they got to pay for it. Gabby Williams said that the WNBA is making it clear that they want to push leagues like Unrivaled and Athletes Unlimited out. In my mind, it really doesn't make sense for the W to do that. Their best bet would be to invest in those leagues because it's much better for the WNBA to have players stay in the States than go play internationally. And if they help to fund those leagues, they can also use them as developmental, which would in turn strengthen their product. The only reason to see leagues like Unrivaled and AU as a threat is if you're insecure about the players leaving to solely play for them. I don't think they'd have this insecurity if they treated the players better financially. When we talk about all of this, we'd be remiss to not include the NBA. The NBA owns about 60% of the WNBA, and a very rough estimate of that value is probably somewhere between 390 to 420 million. It's reported that the NBA has not profited off of the WNBA since its inception, but historically, the NBA did not do a good job with marketing in itself, and they weren't profitable until Magic and Bird, which is a shame because the league still had exciting players like Dr. J, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Wilt Chamberlain. So from my view, the lack of profit from the WNBA is not the fault of the players, but from the figures not knowing how to sell a product without racial controversy. While David Stern was an advocate for the WNBA and the catalyst to why it exists, it's implied by Nancy Lieberman's statement that Stern himself knew that there were people within the NBA who did not want the WNBA to be a thing. Lieberman said that when she met up with Stern in the 80s about this idea of creating the W, he closed the door for the conversation because if they heard him, they'd fire him. Those were his words. It took 12 years after that conversation for the W to come to be, and the delay speaks volumes. It's passive resistance. It's internal reluctance from the NBA Board of Governors or team owners, market skepticism about the viability of a women's league, and a calculated hesitancy to invest in women's sports despite Stern's advocacy. You can use NCAA women's basketball as proof. Top schools are making more than $11 million in annual adjusted revenue. Sports Business Journal estimated that if the top 10 highest valued women's basketball teams in the NCAA could be bought and sold, they'd be worth more than $667 million. The top players from these schools end up playing in the W. You'll never convince me that the fans won't follow. It's about assets and marketing. All that said, I hope the players get everything that they want, need, and deserve. Moving into the fun stuff, the New York Liberty swept the All-Star contest, making them the first teammates to win both challenges since Becky Hammon and Sophia Young back in 2009. After Sabrina won the three-point contest, she said she was giving part of her earnings to the rookie Sonia Citron. Citron looks up to Sabrina, and it's really special to see that bond grow in real time. Personally, I was so entertained by the three-point contest because you really get a chance to see a player's form in action. You can pay attention to detail. Sabrina not only has textbook form, but her consistency in her form makes her a machine. It's really unreal. And it's the same with Kelsey Plum. Her upper body strength is so strong. She really doesn't use a lot of her body in comparison to other shooters. And that's even when she's shooting from the 4-point zone. Also, there's a lot of talk about the 4-point zone, so I like to clarify that it was implemented in 2022. The skills challenge was the most exciting part of the All-Star weekend for me. The race was really close between Erica Wheeler and Natasha Cloud. T Cloud ended up taking home the 55K, but it sparked what I deem a healthy discourse, because if we're not questioning how things are done, we're not growing. There were fans upset that Erica didn't win because she actually made her 3-point shots, while Cloud rushed through her set and missed all 3, but still went on to win by 1.1 seconds. In any context, making shots is considered a skill in basketball and will further highlight a player's skill to make shots in clutch situations. I absolutely support there being a change in rules that somehow weighs field goal percentage. I also think that they should measure pass accuracy, because some of the passes were hitting the outer edge of the old fixture, and the technology is available for that. How well can you hit a smaller target, which is more comparable to what they'd be doing in game? Someone also suggested a ball handling portion, and I really like that idea as well. My thing is, if the players are going to continue to use the All-Star game as a glorified pickup game, I think having more contests will bring excitement for the fans, because truthfully, the game, like the All-Star game, was the least exciting part of the weekend. Seeing them have fun is fun, but I like competition. It's the fabric of the game. It's the sport. I want to measure their skills in a concentrated way that we don't see in the regular season. I also want to see players really play together that we don't normally see. I noticed how intentional Skylar and Erica were with their movements. They took extra time on their passes and on their form when shooting. So even though I think Skylar is one of the most skilled guards in the league, her style might not reflect well in a skills challenge because it looks to be more of a speed challenge. More contests and redefining or revamping the ones already in place can help elevate the fan experience and give the players more bragging rights while keeping things fun. Team Collier took home the win, and many of you criticized me for not choosing them to begin with. And honestly, I thought Caitlin Clark was going to play, and with the All-Star format and with it being in Indiana, I thought she was going to have a big game. I still wouldn't change. If I went back in time, I still wouldn't change my pick. I would still be team Caitlin. I was excited to see her play with Sabrina, Asia, Gabby, and Jackie. I was hoping Satu would be back. Team Clark is a fun team in theory. Y'all are treating it like I just picked them to win the finals or something. Like, relax. It's all fun, right? Like, I was trying to have fun. Skylar Diggins scored the first triple-double in an All-Star game, and Big Mama Scott deserves that accolade to further etch her name into WNBA history because she's just improving over time and is really special to witness. Nafisa Collier furthered her case for league MVP by breaking a record for most points made in the All-Star game with 36. She was 4 for 5 from 3. Some of those were def 4-pointers, but ESPN doesn't have that breakup to differentiate 3-pointers from 4-pointers. Truthfully, there were so many 3 and 4-pointers, I eventually was over the game. I was over it. Like, not just because they were 3s and 4s, but because a lot of them were wild attempts. So y'all know me, I had to look into the numbers. I thought about how much has 3-point shooting increased since they implemented the 4-point zone in 2022. Did adding that zone have an impact on how the players are shooting? So in 2021, there were 50 total 3-pointers taken between both teams. This year, there was 120, which makes that a 140% increase. Last year, we watched a more competitive game because it was Team WNBA against the national team. So there was not a 4-point zone, but there was still an increase in threes by 38% compared to 2021. The highest volume of threes since 2021 was in 2023, where there was 137 attempts, marking a 174% increase. Do y'all like the increase of 3-point shooting? How do y'all feel about the All-Star game in general? I'm very curious to hear your thoughts, so drop those comments in the chat. So I want to segue into my coach's corner, but instead of talking about coaches or players, I want to talk about the other component to our game, and that's the officials. I never thought that I would be the one making an argument for officials, but my empathy meter has been rising and refs are getting booed and blamed. And some are even saying that they're ruining the game. And with the full picture in mind, I think those comments are unfair. While the complaints against the refs are valid, blaming referees without acknowledging the system that they're operating in is only telling half the story. Most WNBA officials are not full-time employees. They're contractors and they're paid by the game. They often hold other jobs and don't have access to the same support systems the NBA provides. So that means no centralized replay center, no full-time development staff, and significantly less pay. Some make just under $2,000 per game. The average person hears this and they're like, $2,000 is a lot of money, but that's significantly less than what top NCAA officials bring in and astronomically low compared to NBA refs who make six figures. NBA refs are also evaluated year-round and use the best technology. The WNBA officiating pool is small. Many refs work 3 games in 5 nights. They travel constantly, switching between different leagues, the W, college, the G League, and all of those leagues have different rule books. Those factors bring fatigue and lack of support translate to inconsistency. These aren't excuses. This is the context most people are missing. Just hearing those things, I immediately think of the parallel of the referees and the WNBA players who are still fighting for the bare minimum of what professional athletes receive, but are still being asked to perform at the highest level with the lowest resources. But unlike the refs, the players are receiving empathy. Refs are being yelled at by the people they're serving. And honestly, many of them have more patience than I ever could have because many of them probably don't even need the WNBA, especially if they're also NCAA refs. I believe most refs probably have an immense love for the game just like we do because it has to be one of the worst jobs in the world if you don't. Looking at the numbers, teams are averaging 18.7 fouls per game this season, the highest since 2017. Flagrant fouls are on pace to be the 3rd most in league history. Technical fouls are likely to land top 6 all time. So that means there's actually more whistles, which means more stoppage. Kelsey Plum was asked about officials during All-Star, and she said she's actually fine with the physicality that they allow. It's the inconsistency for her. She said a foul is a foul in the first and the 4th quarter, meaning if you call something in the first, call that same foul in the 4th and let her be able to be aggressive with defense on the defensive end just as they have been aggressive with her, which it makes sense. I agree that there should be more consistency, and I love the point that she made about fouls being the same in the 1st and the 4th, but in general I don't see a glaring discrepancy in the team's foul count, and if they call more fouls than what they're already doing right now, the games would be unwatchable. I also understand that some calls that we consider bad calls or ghost calls could be mistaken for a foul in real time. These are refs that are mostly relying on the eye test with limited opportunities for review. It's easy to focus on missed calls, but it's harder to consider the nuance at play and recognize that all involved are working in a faulty system. The league has to create a better system for referees, players, and coaches. And to shift some accountability to the players, they got to play better basketball. There's a lot of push-offs that never get called. There's also a lot of hooking and holding during rebounds that never get called. Everybody is guilty of something. Switching gears to the current state of injury in the league, here is the injury report for all players still eligible for the season. Ahead of All-Star weekend, about 14% of the league was on the injury report. We've seen some of those names become active again. Despite playing just 1 minute of the All-Star game, Jackie Young is off the injury report. She was dealing with some hip pain. Caitlin Clark is listed as day-to-day with her groin. Ariel Atkins is day-to-day with her leg. Ryan Howard is out for the rest of July with her knee. And shout out to Stewie for letting Ryan get a shot during the All-Star game. As of July 11th, Marina Mabry was expected to miss 3 games. There haven't been any updates since then. Dejanay Carrington and Maddie Siegrist are expected to return July 2nd. Cameron Brink is expected to be back before the end of July. Lexi Hale, Satu Sabally, Monique McConney, and Kalia Copper are anticipated to return July 23rd. And Sika Combs' contract was temporarily suspended by the Washington Mystics. Before I wrap up, I just want to express gratitude. I give thanks to all of the Hoops Tribe that has reached out to send well wishes. That support means everything. I'm still learning to navigate life and basketball with y'all here on this platform. Make sure you visit womensbasketball365.com and subscribe to our newsletter. For those that read, there are some really good articles to check out. Be sure to follow WBB.365 on Threads and Instagram. And you can also follow Cassie Chantel on Facebook, Blue Sky, X, and Instagram as well. As always, folks, thank y'all for tuning in. And let's talk hoops.